Now we're going to take you on an extended walk through the pedestrian zone and narrow streets on the east side of downtown Avignon, an area filled with shops, people, and historic buildings. The only way to see this part of town is by walking. You can do this on your own, using your own instincts, or using the map, using the brochures, or use a local guide. And now we're going to show you a mix of scenes, some from our walking tour with a local guide, from our visit, and others just meandering around on our own, to give you a good overview of how you too can walk through the center of Avignon. Avignon's Old Town is a charming neighborhood of shopping lanes and narrow residential streets with little back alleys perfect for strolling. Some of these routes are exclusively for pedestrians. No cars allowed, especially in the shopping center just southeast of the Place de l'Horloge. It's like one big shopping mall. And this historic center can easily be seen on foot in one day, for it is a compact zone about 1/2 mile wide and about 1/2 mile long. The curved shape of these streets will keep you guessing what's around the bend, what's coming up next, or which monument or museum will you see around the next bend in the road. The streets are level. You don't have to worry about hills here in the center of the old town. And they're just riddled with little plazas and fountains with trees, some benches, and of course numerous cafes. While this neighborhood is very old, the shops and galleries are up to date with modern interiors and contemporary European items for sale. Be sure to visit the Tourist Information Office and get their free Welcome to Avignon brochure with descriptions of the major sites and an extremely useful map that provides 4 walking routes to follow while you're exploring the city. The Tourist Bureau has put colored arrows on the sidewalks here and there, coordinated with the map to help keep you on track. Walk to the south end of the square and turn east into the pedestrian-only neighborhood for a little meandering. At first, this walking zone will seem vast and disorienting. There's a lot of tangled, twisted corners and angles. There's no straight roads in here. They're curved, or they're bent, or they're V-shaped. This is actually just a few blocks of lovely shops that you would enjoy again later in the afternoon for some further serious browsing. Across the street, you'll find the Church of Saint-Pierre, which was built in the Gothic style in the 14th century and then completed in the early Renaissance style. The choir stalls are especially impressive with their elegant 17th century wainscoting. The classical form of the interior contains 6 side chapels and the nave and the main altar. The large gilded high altar is a fine example of the high Renaissance. One feature the church is most famous for are those solid wooden doors. There's a lovely statue of the Madonna and Child at the doorway as well. The exterior is especially impressive with its flamboyant Gothic style and the carved stone traceries of these stone ribs. Its location just 2 blocks east of Place de l'Horloge marks the northern edge of the pedestrian zone. From the church, walk along Rue des Marchands, past the synagogue and passing Place Jerusalem over to Place P. The origins of this open plaza go back about 500 years when it had been an area of housing that was pulled down in 1562 to open up free area for a busy outdoor food market. Place P is a relatively large tree-lined square surrounded by quaint buildings and cafes. And today the main food market of town is still at this location, but now it's inside a large building. The covered food market of Les Halles was created in the 1800s as a metal shed at first, and then it grew larger. And you see here today the modern market hall. It was built in the 1970s with a very interesting living green wall on the outside. Place P is a nice outdoor plaza that would be easily overlooked by the casual visitor to Avignon. It's not really at the top of any postcard shots or lists of things to visit in town, but you see, it's a very lovely spot. Emerging on the south end at Rue Bonneterie, which turns into one of the most picturesque streets in town.
Rue des Teinturiers.
The Street of the Tinters. Several ancient water wheels along this cobble lane are still turning, pushed along by a quaint little tree-lined canal. These wheels were once used to provide power for the manufacturing and dyeing of textiles and printing and a few other industrial applications. It was the beginnings of the industrial age. Now this is a trendy street with cafes, boutiques, and a small theater, and it's a mere 10-minute walk from the town center. You might want to come back again for another look at twilight when it takes on a different atmosphere. And of course, that's when the restaurants will be really coming to life. This street is the kind of place you just want to drop anchor for a while and hang out. Sit down on a bench, lean up against the wall, relax, watch these water wheels. Of course, the wheels are no longer functioning to power any equipment, obviously, in this modern age. They're here mostly as historical landmarks and for your entertainment. So take advantage. It becomes very hypnotic to just stand watching these wheels go round and round. Generally, when we see an old historic feature like this that's still working, still moving, we just take it for granted that it's always been that way, but it requires some maintenance, some money, and some effort. Several years ago, the street looked like this. Well, that was disappointing. All ripped up for construction. What a letdown. However, by now, all the work is long finished and it will be looking better than ever. From here, we stroll back towards the center of town along Rue des Lys. It's not a pedestrian street. It's typical of the narrow lanes that have some automobiles, but not very many, so it's a quiet place to wander. A good example of the slightly out-of-the-way neighborhood that you might easily miss, but with the Rue des Teinturiers leading you over to look at the water wheels, you just might find it. Notice the large 4-story building with the arcaded windows. This has quite a history. It's about 400 years old, and it's gone through a variety of purposes, starting out as a home for monks and then a home for poor people. There was a barracks for soldiers at one point, and now it's a modern luxury apartment building. Rue des Lys passes one of the more charming little plazas in town, the Place de Coursant, with its burbling fountain, and there's a picturesque little church of the Celestines, and there's a bar of the same name. There's a lively array of cafe tables that are spread out here in fair weather. It's a lovely spot any time of the day, but it especially comes to life in the evening when people come out and enjoy the restaurants all around it. Another little place you might not find in many guidebooks because locals keep it a secret, but it's a great place to drop in. And in the evening, you'll find several lovely restaurants, very casual, very friendly, warm, cozy places for a typical Provençal meal. It's more of a local neighborhood with homemade desserts, very reasonable prices, and delicious food. Around the corner, we come upon Rue Frédéric Mistral, which is a short lane that passes under a picturesque arch that connects two historic buildings. The street's name honors one of the great literary and culture heroes of Provence, Frédéric Mistral, a writer who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1904 and was a great advocate for the independence of Provence. As you walk around in the old town, you're going to see a number of other arches, some of them small, some of them tall and narrow, an indication of how old and densely populated the city is, growing within the confines of its medieval wall. Next, you'll continue a few blocks north to another church worth visiting, Saint Didier, one of the largest Gothic churches in Provence. The ancient collegiate church of Saint Didier was rebuilt in 1358. And if you enter into it, you'll find that it contains some arcades and a little Gothic pulpit in stone. In the Place Principale, just northeast of the Saint Didier Church, is the old Chapel of the Penitents. It was founded in 930 but rebuilt in the 15th century, and it contains some valuable paintings inside. Continue a block north from the church into Avignon's main pedestrian zone, lined with shops. A maze of several blocks ideal for wandering. And this will lead you back to that main Place de l'Horloge and put you in prime position for lunch or a snack or whatever meal happens to be appropriate for you at this time. Of course, you'll always have a variety of choices. You could try Afro-Cuban. There's all sorts of cuisines, not only French food in Avignon. Maybe a crepe and a salad, that's a nice light meal, or kebab on the main street. Okay, well now we're just going to wander and cut loose in this beautiful pedestrian zone. Late in the afternoon, everybody's out. It's mostly locals walking around. There are tourists, of course, in Avignon. It's a great center for that travels, but this is the scene of like passeggiata in Italy. Late afternoon, locals strolling, shopping, seeing their friends, having a bite, having a drink, getting ready for dinner. So we're going to join them and just wander around. It's on the streets just on the right side of the Rue de la République, a wonderful shopping area and a great place to walk. No cars allowed in this pedestrian zone. It's the heart and soul of Avignon, the great gathering place for strolling, people watching, snacking, and excellent shopping among hundreds of small stores packed into this friendly little neighborhood. It's a small area, only about 400 meters square, with a dozen walking lanes that twist and turn, keeping you wondering where you are. So it might seem vast and disorienting, but you can't get too lost in this retail paradise. This human scale evolved organically over the centuries and then was perfected by the town planners here at their very best, with buildings just a few stories high, providing plenty of air, light, and sufficient room to walk around without getting run over by any cars or trucks, and with enough things to see here to keep everybody busy and attracted to come back frequently. Even the bordering streets that do have some cars are also quiet, with good sidewalks, more shops, cafes, and little traffic. So the friendly zone extends further out, about 600 meters east from Rue de la République, giving you plenty of room to explore. There's a whole variety of great things to purchase here in Avignon, ranging from souvenirs such as the Provençal fabrics and pottery, or some jewelry, clothing, you name it. They've got everything. It's like one gigantic shopping mall in the pedestrianized streets of Old Town Avignon. Ironically, Place de la Principale is one of the most empty parts of this pedestrian zone, so don't always go by the names, just follow your nose and look around. There are so many great lanes for walking that the Tourist Information Office has prepared this map showing recommended color routes for walking, but you can see they've colored in practically every other street in the center of town, so you can grab their free map by all means, or just go and wander. Every place is good. In addition to these many attractions of Avignon that you've been watching, there's another reason to consider staying here for at least a few days, maybe 4 or 5 days. It makes a great home base for visiting nearby Arles, Aix-en-Provence, Marseille, Pont-du-Gard, Uzès, Saint-Rémy, and Nîmes, with easy bus and rail connections for independent travel, or a variety of tour operators who can take you around on day trips. Those are all great places you want to see, but Avignon is probably the best location to see them from because of its large number of hotels, central location with great train connections and bus, and those many pedestrian zones and historic sites to keep you busy. Quiet electric minibuses are part of their innovative transit system in Avignon. This is a wonderful way to carry people around through the pedestrian streets. Most shops will be closing by 8 p.m. This time of day, twilight is just perfect for walking. Maybe sitting at a sidewalk cafe and watching the people. It's probably not a time when you want to sit down inside a restaurant and lose the lighting. This is just beautiful to be out on the streets at this hour. Twilight, you've got shop lights, the evening light, the street lights are on, and the shop windows are all lit up. It's very safe to walk around in these little streets in the evening. Of course, you want to take normal precautions. You don't walk around with lots of money, and you want to just, watch out for yourself, but you don't have to worry. Feel free to stroll in the evening. Perfectly fine. Well, let's have a look at Avignon at nighttime, just after sunset, and then we'll continue on in this segment and take a stroll at sunrise in Avignon. Dusk and dawn. On to the Rue de la République. This is the busiest street of town. The main street stays busy right through the evening. Most shops will be closing by 8 p.m. And in the evening, the side streets are also lovely. Then in the morning, you might get up before breakfast and take a stroll. Sure, why not? There's a special lighting. There's not many people out at this hour at about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And yet, it feels like you can have the city almost to yourself. It's certainly a good way to escape the crowds if that's your interest. Take a sunrise stroll in these little back streets. Obviously, shops are not open at this hour, but you will find a few food markets opening up already at sunrise, and you'll run into the odd cafe that's serving a little coffee to help wake you up on your early morning stroll. People are out walking their dogs. You might hear some birds chirping. It's a very peaceful time of day. A few cars are out, but by and large, even on the main street, there's really not much going on. It's pretty empty. You probably worked up a healthy appetite, so it's a good time to head back over to your hotel for breakfast. In one of our visits, we stayed at this wonderful 4-star hotel, the Cloître Saint-Louis. It's a cloister, actually a former Jesuit monastery, an amazing historic structure that's been modernized thoroughly, with one wing added by Jean Nouvel, among the world's most innovative architects. This was a relatively early work by Nouvel in the 1970s in this minimalist but stylish design. They've got a lovely breakfast room that's within the arcade of the original cloister and serving up some wonderful food to help you start the day. The hotel is located within the walls at the southern end of the old town, about 1 block from the train station and the major bus stop, so it's quite convenient. You don't need a taxi if you're staying here. When departing by train or bus, you just simply walk over to the station. It takes 2 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed our detailed visit to this wonderful city. Now it's time to move along to our next destination. This is part of our larger series of films about the south of France. We'll be taking you to the stone village of Le Beau, have some crepes, down to Nice, the beach, the old town. We'll see it during the daylight and take you back there at night. We'll be visiting historic sites and meeting the people. Pont du Gard, ancient Roman aqueduct. The quaint village of Saint-Remy will charm you on market day with street music. You'll see shop dogs and ancient arcades. The daily joy of life in the streets is one of our specialties. We'll do some downtown shopping and enjoy traditional recreation. You can also find Aix-en-Provence, Cannes, and nearby Antibes along the sunny shores, and Marseille in our series of travel videos. All the best of southern France. Look for them in our collection.